In session, shall we pray? Almighty God, who in your wisdom and goodness has appointed the office of rulers and parliaments for the welfare of society and the just government of men and women, we beseech you to behold with your abundant favor us, your servants, whom you have called to the performance of important trust in these islands. Father, let your blessing descend upon us here assembled, and grant that we may treat and consider all matters that shall come under our deliberation in so just and faithful a manner as to promote your honor and glory, and to advance the peace, prosperity, and welfare of these islands and of those whose interest you have committed to our charge. And this we beg in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen. Amen. May the grace of our Lord Jesus Christ, and the love of God, and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with us all evermore. Amen. Be seated. Item number 2 are the minutes of the 14th and the 18th of March, 2019.
Madam President.
Senator Jardine, you have the floor.
Madam President, I move that consideration of the minutes of the meetings of Thursday, the 14th of March, 2019, and Monday, the 18th of March, 2019, be deferred.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection. The minutes are conferred. Thank you, Senator Jardine. Item number 3, the messages. Clark.
Yes, Madam President, we have a message from the Honorable House of Assembly. The message reads, to the Honorable the President and members of the Senate, the House of Assembly has the honor to forward herewith the undernoted bill for the concurrence of your House, the Appropriation Act 2019. Copies of the estimates of revenue and expenditure for 2019-2020 are also forwarded for the information of your House. And that's signed Honorable Dennis P. Lister, JP-MP Speaker, dated March 18th, 2019.
Thank you, Senator. Item number 4, reports of committees. There are none. Item number 5, announcements. There are none. Item number 6, notices of motion. There are none. Item number 7, petitions. There are none. Item number 8, statements. There are none. Item number 9, introduction of bills. There are none. And item number 10, the first reading of public bills. The following public bills have been received from the Honorable House of Assembly and are now read for the first time. Their titles are respectively the Appropriation Act 2019, the Governor's recommendation signified, in which you've heard, the Land Tax Amendment Act 2019, and the Governor's recommendation signified, and the Dental Practitioners Amendment Act 2019. Item number 11, the first reading of private bills. There are none. Item number 12, questions and question periods. There are none. Item number 13, orders of the day. And the orders of the day is that the Senate will undertake debate on the 2019-20 budget estimates with the second reading of the Appropriation Act 2019. And I will ask Senator Campbell.
Madam President, I move that the provisions of Standing Order 25 be granted, so that Senate may now proceed with the second reading of the public bill entitled the Appropriation Act 2019.
Is there any objection to that motion? No objection.
Madam President, I move that the public bill entitled the Appropriation Act 2019 be now read a second time, together with consideration of the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the fiscal year 2019-2020.
Any objection to that motion? No objections.
Madam President, I move that the Senate do now resolve itself into a committee of the whole for further consideration of the Appropriation Act 2019, together with the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year 2019-2020.
Thank you, Senator Campbell, and I will ask Senator Jardine to take the chair. And before I do, can I just recognize the Permanent Secretary, Marva O'Brien, Legal Affairs, and the Controller in the gallery. Thank you. Oops. Yeah, but I missed the chair.
Senators, the Senate is now in Committee of the Whole for further consideration of the Appropriation Act 2019, together with the estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year 2019 to 2020. There is a schedule which has been circulated to all senators, which sets out the business for the day in committee. And the first ministry up for debate this morning is the Ministry of Legal Affairs. There are 2 hours allotted to this debate, and we will be considering heads 87, 4, and 23. Now, I believe that, Senator, are you taking this debate?
To start, yes.
Thank you. So, yes, on behalf of the Senator, the AG, who's had to leave the Senate temporarily for the moment. So, Senator, if you would please continue and present the heads 87, 4, and 23, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, fellow senators,
Good morning.
and members of the listening audience. I move that the committee do now take under consideration Head 87, Ministry of Legal Affairs Headquarters, Head 4, Attorney General's Chambers, and Head 23, Child and Family Services. Mr. President, the Ministry of Legal Affairs is charged with the responsibility of upholding the Constitution and legal system of Bermuda. The Ministry's mission statement, department objectives, and foreign account expenditures are found on page B80 of the budget book. Its mission is as follows: to provide the fair administration of and access to justice while strengthening and promoting the well-being and protection of children, adults, and families through the rehabilitation, prevention, and treatment services. Department objectives. The objectives of Ministry Headquarters are to advance government policy initiatives under the direction of the Minister of Legal Affairs, to ensure the government's legislative framework is updated and current with policy directives, and to effect synergies amongst ministry departments to ensure that overall policy objectives are met. Mr. Chair, the departments that come under the umbrella of the ministry are Legal Affairs Headquarters, Judiciary, Attorney General's Chambers, Department of Court Services, Department of Public Prosecutions, Department of Child and Family Services, and Department of National Drug Control. Mr. Chair, current expenditure. The Ministry's budget commences on page B79 of the approved estimates of revenue and expenditure for the year 2019-20 in the budget book. A budget ceiling of $49,071,000 was allocated to the entire ministry for the 2019-20 fiscal year. This amount represents a $1,167,000 or 2% increase from the current 2018-19 fiscal year. A comprehensive analysis of ministry expenditure was undertaken to strike a balance between optimizing spending limits without compromising the efficient delivery of services. And Mr. Chair, will now return it to Madam AG.
Thank you, Senator. Senator AG Kathy Simmons will now continue with the presentation of heads 87, 4, and 23.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, colleague, for stepping in. The 2% overall annual budgetary increase can be accounted for as follows: the transfer of the MERIS program of $906,000, $2,000 increase in minor overhead costs for the department, $250,000 increase in salaries due to the rise in pay scales approved by the Joint Grading Panel for the Judicial Department. $200,000 transferred to the Department of Child and Family Services from the Ministry of Health for a grant given to Teen Haven, and a net reduction in overhead expenses for the Department of Public Prosecutions and the Department of Court Services in the amount of $191,000. The breakdown is detailed as follows on page B79 of the budget book. It is recorded that costs have been cut in two aforementioned departments to be reallocated based on the needs of the ministry. Mr. Chair, the full-time equivalent, or FTE, staffing for the Ministry of Legal Affairs increased from 303 to 315 from 2018-19 to 2019-20 as a result of the following: 1 additional FTE for a pupil in headquarters, 6 FTEs as a result of the transfer of the MERIS program to Legal Affairs, 3 FTEs under the Legal Aid Scheme as a result of the new Legal Aid model, i.e. a Legal Aid Counsel, a Paralegal, and a Junior Legal Aid Counsel. 1 FTE under the Judicial Department that will be responsible for the Criminal Injuries Compensation Board and liquor licensing, and 1 FTE under Child and Family Services. The government is committed to ensuring that there is government efficiency and value for money. We have already begun to see where legal and investment is trending toward reduced costs and overall savings. Investing in our future lawyers promises to pay dividends for the future of our chambers and the domestic quality of the legal fraternity. The Criminal Interest Compensation Board undertakes a vital function with respect to reducing the impact of violent crime, and MERA's work is to develop our youth to prevent such crimes in the first instance. Of the $49,071,000 allocated to the ministry, particular allocations are as follows. In headquarters, $6,627. The Judicial Department, $8,723,000. The Attorney General's Chambers, $5,308,000. The Department of Court Services, $4,658,000. And the Department of Public Prosecutions, $3,329,000. The Department of Child and Family Services, $5,915,000. And the Department of National Drug Control, $4,511,000. Under the head of revenue, the only departments under the ministry's portfolio that have a mandate to generate revenue are the Judicial Department and the Department of Child and Family Services. Their combined revenue is projected to be $10,403,000. This amounts to $1,405,000 more than the 2018-19 original estimates. And let me just digress for a minute and advise Sanders that in the budget book, in the difference column, that's the difference between the original estimate from 2018-19, Mr. Chair, and the estimate for the 2019-20 shown in amount and percentage, just to make that clear, because that was a question that arose.
Yes, thank you, Senator.
Mr. Chair, the coin account expenditure estimates for Head 87, the Ministry of Legal Affairs Headquarters, begins on page B80 of the budget book. A total of $6,627,000 has been allocated to Ministry Headquarters. This represents an increase of $909,000, or 16%, from the 2018-19 original estimates. The increase is mainly due to the budget allocation of $906,000 for the MERA's program. It will be transferred to the ministry commencing April 1st, 2019, and is not reflected in the original estimates for 2018-19. In addition, resources were diverted to increase funding for the services that will be performed by litigation guardians, a net, of a small decrease in the funds allocated to other overhead costs within the ministry. Legal services costs have also decreased due to effects of reform of the legal aid model. Mr. Chair, of the $6,627,000 allocated to Ministry Headquarters, $2,355,000, or 36% of the budgeted amount, represents the allocation for salaries. This includes salaries for Ministry Headquarters, the Legal Aid Office, the Financial Sanctions Implementation Unit, which is new, and the MERA's program. Specific details are as follows: $724,000 for Ministry Headquarters, $829,000 for the Legal Aid Office, $324,000 for the Financial Sanctions Implementation Unit, and $478,000 for the MERA's program. Mr. Chair, $1,866,000, or 28% of the Ministry Headquarters budget, is allocated to professional services. Budgeting is for external legal counsel retained by the Legal Aid Office of $660,000. Also included in the professional services allocation is a budget of $554,000 for the Justice Protection Program. This program continues to produce excellent dividends for Bermuda by contributing to the successful prosecution and conviction of criminals. Also included in professional services is funding allocated for litigation guardians in the amount of $242,000 to ensure the independent representation of children during court proceedings. Further funding in the amount of $105,000 has been provided towards public relations through a communications officer on behalf of the ministry. Funding in the amount of $143,000 will enable the MIRRORS program to avail itself of required consultants. Communication expenses found on page B81 in the amount of $65,000 consist of telephone expenses for various sections under Ministry Headquarters, which are Administration, Legal Aid, the Sanctions Unit, and the MIRRORS program. $98,000 also found on page B81 mainly relates to transporting 22 senior school students overseas for camps under the MIRRORS program rather than hosting the camp locally. This change is a more cost-effective way of providing services while building youth leadership skills. It also allows the students to interact with overseas students and acclimatize to a college campus-like experience. Mr. Chair, the Ministry of Legal Affairs Headquarters is furthermore functionally subdivided into six fiscally identifiable programs as follows. 97000, Administration, and I'll just read, I'll go through the whole 9 yards. 97T10, Financial Intelligence Agency, which is a grantee. 97030, Legal Aid. 97070, Justice Protection. 97080, Financial Sanctions Implementation Unit, and 97090, the MIRRORS program. I'll now proceed to address him individually as follows. Under the head of Administration, this program provides for the administrative costs associated with Ministry Headquarters, to which $1,338,000 has been allocated. This represents an increase of $389,000, or 41%, from the 2018-19 original estimates. The increase is mainly due to the funding allocated for litigation guardians fees of $242,000, and one communications officer budgeted, as I mentioned previously, for $105,000. This communication officer is a political consultant whose services consist of developing materials, including but not limited to writing and editing speeches, greetings, press releases, press statements, and fact sheets, coordinating with the Department of Communication to support the Minister's development and preparation and delivery of information, and liaison with local media and the communications industry to advise on the best use of traditional, non-traditional, and new media to reach identified targeted audiences. Developing and implementing strategies for media queries, communications planning, and service delivery in compliance with established policies and procedures. Mr. Chair, included in the Administration Cost Center are salaries and related costs for Ministry Headquarters. Administrative support for the Minister and Permanent Secretary is provided by one seconded Executive Assistant and one Administrative Assistant. Policy formulation for Ministry legislative initiatives and project management is provided by a policy analyst. Fiscal and financial control is provided by a Ministry Controller, who is in the chamber today, our very talented and diligent Ms. Anika Mendez. Mr. Chair, Ministry Headquarters intends to continue to focus on the codification and efficient delivery of throne speech initiatives. Our ministry's most recent commitments include the vital role to be played in realizing the medicinal and economic benefits of medical cannabis, modernizing Bermuda's liquor licensing regime to meet the challenges confronting us, and needed court reform to address the pressing social challenges of settling family law disputes. Moving from limited decriminalization of cannabis to laying the framework of a medical cannabis industry entails overcoming many hurdles. Mr. Chair, our government is responsive to the increasing numbers of medical professionals embracing the science surrounding cannabis and its positive impact on pain relief and the management of chronic medical conditions. The Ministry is progressing with advancing the regime whereby licensed medical practitioners are permitted to prescribe medicinal cannabis to aid in the treatment of such conditions. In its 2017 platform, Mr. Chair, the government promised to allow licensed practitioners to prescribe their patients medicinal cannabis to address legitimate health issues and establish a regime for domestic medicinal cannabis production. The government has already delivered on a platform promise that targeted removing the criminal offense for simple possession by any person who held 7 grams or less of cannabis. In this 2019-20 budget year, the Ministry intends to advance from limited decriminalization of cannabis to also establish a robust licensing regime that will create a comprehensive framework that embraces the science of cannabis use for medicinal purposes. Mr. Chair, legal aid reform has moved into the implementation phase where we are already experiencing projected cost-saving results to be enhanced with further implementation. This is the outcome of our commitment to minimizing outsourcing legal services where feasible and to reap the benefits of handling matters in-house with added staff that pays dividends as compared to the considerably costlier option of outsourcing as was blindly committed to in the past. Liquor licensing reform is well underway to strike the right balance between the commercial benefits of selling alcohol and responsible consumption. Our current liquor licensing regime is as cumbersome and dated as should be expected for having been originally fashioned in 1974, which is almost 45 years ago, Mr. Chair. Accordingly, in keeping with government's commitment, legislation is well underway and actually was tabled recently in the House to modernize the mechanisms and the process by which liquor licenses are granted. This will also expand classes of licenses, enhance enforcement, and provide a balanced approach which promotes health and safety to the community while supporting businesses and our tourism product. Mr. Chair, in the 2019-20 budget year, the Ministry of Legal Affairs will further introduce amendments that are designed to improve and modernize the functioning of the Liquor Licensing Authority under the Act. It remains the duty of a responsible government to ensure that adequate protections exist in law to administer the sale and consumption of alcohol in the best interests of the whole society. The gaps identified in the liquor licensing regime are preventing businesses from legally serving alcohol at certain events. It is anticipated that amendments to the law will decrease the practice of serving alcohol without the proper authorization. Mr. Chair, having passed sex offender legislation to protect society, and especially our children, work continues apace to coordinate stakeholders and to implement the sex offender registration and notification system. The work of the Joint Select Committee was carefully considered to ensure a bipartisan approach to the measures ultimately implemented. As a result, we now have a comprehensive registration, rehabilitation, monitoring, and reporting system under the auspices of an offender risk management team with this primary mandate. The aim is to ensure that all necessary steps are taken for offenders to be reformed once incarcerated and appropriately monitored and supervised upon release. Appropriate notices will be provided to victims and the public to prevent reoffending with particular regard to the safety of our children. Mr. Chair, the Ministry's commitment to providing opportunities to train Bermuda's next generation of lawyers continues apace. Our pupillage program provides pupils with an opportunity to work under the supervision of a designated barrister known as a pupil master. The pupil is thereby provided with training and experience within a number of different areas within the ministry. This includes the Department of Public Prosecutions, the Legal Aid Department, where they gain, criminal law experience, the Civil Advisory Section of the Attorney General's Chambers, where they gain experience in civil litigation and advice, and the Drafting Section of Chambers, where they are taught the process of how law is made. In 2018, Mr. Chair, 4 pupils were selected to participate in the program, and it is anticipated that each will be given the opportunity to become proficient in an array of legal disciplines. The pupils have been placed on a rotation schedule and have been given the opportunity to assist with files, attend court, and gain experience with the type of work for which the pupil master has responsibility, in addition to any other persons within the ministry who the pupil master may assign the pupil to. Throughout the pupillage period, the pupils work under close monitoring and supervision of their pupil masters, and they are provided with required assistance and the opportunity to discuss complex legal matters to ensure that their pupillage is progressing appropriately and that it meets, if not exceeds, the requirements of the Bermuda Bar Association pupillage guidelines. The Those guidelines require that a number of practice areas are covered during the pupillage, such as legal research, problem analysis and fact investigation, planning and conduct of a matter, and file and practice management. The program is proceeding efficiently, and it is anticipated that a positive pupillage experience will continue to endear pupils to recommend others to pursue a legal career within the ministry, thereby offering preferential opportunity to recruit new talent. Finally, child support arrears enforcement remains a challenging priority relating to unifying the family court to fully marshal mediation and case management to resolving family disputes. Resources will be deployed to implement a unified family court and mediation center to better assist families in crisis and decrease dependency on an adversarial system. The stress of litigation will be further offset by streamlined case management to further minimize protracted disputes in family matters. The intended single registry office promises better trained professionals at every level. This restorative justice approach is long overdue to assist children and families faced with the daunting challenges of resolving disputes without damaging the social bonds they depend on. In 2019-2020, the Ministry of Legal Affairs, as described in the 2018 Throne Speech, will progress with the Unified Family Court and Mediation Center to provide coordinated services to those who have family-related matters within the judicial system. Restorative justice will be fully integrated to progress cases involving children and families in a fair, efficient, and cost-effective manner. It is anticipated that this platform will assist to empower families through appropriate skills development activities and sound case management practices to resolve disputes. The Legal Aid Office, Mr. Chair, is our next category, and that's under 97030. Mr. Chair, the office's purpose is to ensure that legal advice and representation is readily available to those who need it most and who, because of limited financial means, would otherwise be unable to secure access to justice. The mission statement of the office is to provide high-quality legal representation to those who qualify for assistance under the Legal Aid Act 1980. The office aims to achieve this by providing qualified clients with accessible and professional legal services in a timely and efficient manner. Mr. Chair, the Legal Aid Scheme, which is administered by the Legal Aid Committee under the authority of the Legal Aid Act 1980, is allocated for 2019-20 $1,684,000, which is a 19% or $389,000 decrease from the 2018-19 original estimate allocation. The decrease in the budgetary needs from 2018-19 is primarily attributable to less funding being allocated to legal services. This results from in-house legal aid counsel taking conduct of many cases that would otherwise have been allocated to outside counsel at a higher cost per case. The private bar still retains a role in the operation of the legal aid scheme, but the implementation of public policy-based cost controls has reduced this area of expenditure. Of the 2019-20 allocation, $829,000 or 49% represents salaries for administrative and management staff. $660,000 or 39% represents costs allocated for legal services. The remaining $195,000 or 12% represents administrative expenses other than salaries for the Legal Aid Office. Mr. Chair, the Legal Aid Office has focused primarily on increased operational control over client litigation and administrative efficiency. The reduction of expenditure, where possible, has been a primary concern, but not at the expense of reduction in the quality of legal services. The largest area of expenditure within the legal aid budget remains legal fees, which is in keeping with historical trends. The office was able to contain spending within its budget in 2018-19 through prudent management, coupled with the cost reduction and budget control initiatives outlined in the previous budget. The transition to the reformed legal aid model commenced in June 2018 and continues underway. To date, one of the 3 legal counsel has been employed to decrease previously outsourced work. And the counsel who is actually leading the office at present is Charles Richardson, who is doing a sterling job and is very good at revising the policy in order to continue to achieve our cost reductions. Although full staff is not yet in place, from the period June 1st, 2018 to December 31st, 2018, legal fees paid to external counsel amounted to $996,000. This compares to the annual average cost for the immediately preceding 2-year period of over $1 million. It is anticipated that costs will continue to trend downward in tandem with full implementation of the reform model. Mr. Chair, under the category of legal services, between the period 1st April 2018 and 31st August 2018, the Legal Aid Office managed a combined total of 105 new matters, 13 domestic matters, 7 matrimonial matters, 30 civil matters, and 55 criminal matters. The Legal Aid Office continues to maintain a general roster of counsel from private practice to provide legal services to persons granted legal aid certificates, notwithstanding that in-house counsel also absorbs a percentage of the caseload. For the period April 1st, 2018 to January 31st, 2019, 80 counsel, including 2 QCs representing 40 law firms, were listed on the Legal Aid roster. The Legal Aid Office does not keep statistics on the nationality of counsel. However, the majority are Bermudians. To get on the roster or list, counsel must write a letter to the Legal Aid Committee requesting to be added to the roster and include their qualifications. The current initiative to reform the legal aid service delivery model will increase sustainability, provide employment and training opportunities for Bermudian counsel, improve succession planning, and lastly, significantly reduce expenditure on legal fees, which has historically been an area of budget overspend. The Legal Aid Office continues to be a major stakeholder in the specialist court programs such as the Drug Court and Mental Health Treatment Court, providing defense counsel for these courts. In addition to the traditional rosters of counsel participating in the legal aid scheme and duty counsel managed and maintained by this office, small rosters are also in place for these specialist courts. If in-house counsel are not available, private practice counsel who are competent in these areas will be utilized. The Legal Aid Office will also produce a comprehensive legal aid policies and procedure guidelines document relevant to these courts, which was released to the members of the Bermuda Bar Association for circulation to its members in July of 2018. This provides a useful reference guide to counsel who currently participate in those courts and those who may wish to join. The Bar has also included a designated legal aid section on its website for ease of access. Mr. Chair, with regard to output measures, the Legal Aid Office retains the ability to process applications for legal aid certificates within 14 working days. However, achieving this objective is dependent on whether applicants have submitted the required information in a timely manner. One of the primary areas of delay was a lack of information from applicants as to the precise nature of the assistance that they were seeking. We have modified the application process to address this concern. A supplemental form to the legal aid application was developed to gather more information from the applicant on the nature of the dispute. This has allowed the committee to better assess the application in determining if the individual qualifies for the grant of legal aid. The Legal Aid Office continues to process applications for temporary certificates, commonly known as emergency certificates, within 3 working days. This is feasible once all relevant financial information is submitted at the time of application, and applications for emergency certificates can be approved provided they are kept below a certain amount and are ratified by the committee within 28 days. Mr. Chair, at present the Legal Aid Office is comprised of 3 administrative posts and 3 legal posts. The 3 administrative posts are the office manager, accounts assistant, and an administrative assistant. The 3 legal posts are the senior legal aid counsel, a paralegal, and a law pupil. In the coming months, more staff will be added to this complement, consisting of 2 counsel in addition, bringing the eventual number to 3. These 3 counsel will attend court and represent clients at a reduced cost to the public purse. since they will be on salary as opposed to drawing an hourly fee rate. We expect to see appreciable savings using this model. With regard to training and development, Mr. Chair, the Legal Aid Office has as one of its primary objectives to be focused not only on present service provision, but also development of the quality of the advocates who appear in court on behalf of our clients. To this end, the research and library facilities at the Legal Aid Office are being revamped. This is necessary to support the litigation that will now be carried on out of that office. Because for the first time, Legal Aid Counsel will not simply be managing the scheme on an administrative level, they will also have conduct of serious cases in Supreme Court, such as murders and firearm matters. This broadening of the scope of the work done by the Legal Aid Counsel will provide ripe opportunities for rapid growth and the acquisition of valuable experience. There will eventually be 2 junior counsel who will work under the guidance of the Senior Legal Aid Counsel. Training on the office's case management system, Legal Files, was also recently conducted for all staff to develop their competency on the system, as well as to keep them abreast of updates. The Legal Files system is the database we use to track client information, case disposition, classification, and cost of each case we have conduct of. The diversity of work in the Legal Aid Office makes it an attractive option for pupils, law students, and summer students. It is integral to facilitating the ministry's thrust to train and retain competent and qualified Bermudians. At present, there is a roster which allows pupils to spend time working in all of the relevant government legal environments on rotation, and that was mentioned earlier, at the end of which they will be able to draw on a wide base of knowledge and eventually choose a specialization area and settle into practice. With regard to other initiatives of that office, Mr. Chair, amendments to the legal aid legislation will be considered during the upcoming fiscal year with respect to the calculation of disposable income and to take into account the cost of living increases. This will be coupled with the implementation of clear guidelines on the categories of cases that will qualify for coverage, these categories themselves being a reflection of a balance between the principles of access to justice on the one hand and reasonable use of public funds on the other. An agreement between the Bermuda Bar Association and the Legal Aid Office, Mr. Chair, is in place to ensure that counsel participating in the scheme will be trained to have a full understanding of the legal aid policies, procedures, and general expectations of counsel undertaking legal matters. Existing counsel who wish to undertake legal work must attend 1 mandatory continuing education training session per year hosted by the association in order to remain on the legal aid roster. Additionally, those counsel who undertake a certain amount of legal aid work per year are granted a discount on the fees payable for practicing certificates. And now, Mr. Chair, I will move on to item 97070, which is the Justice Protection Program. Mr. Chair, the Justice Protection Program has been allocated a budget of $554,000 for fiscal year 2019-20, which is $3,000 more than the prior 2018-19 year's original estimate. This program is operated pursuant to the Justice Protection Act 2010 and provides protection for witnesses who support the prosecution process and meet the legislative requirements for entry into the program. The success of this legislative initiative is apparent from the increase in successful prosecutions, particularly those that are gang-related and involve violent offenders, similar to within other jurisdictions.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Madam AG. If I can just interrupt for a minute, the Senate would like to acknowledge the presence of MP Michael Scott in the Senate today. Welcome. Very pleased to see you. Thank you very much, Madam AG. You may continue.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move on now to the Financial Sanctions Implementation Unit, item 97080. Mr. Chair, the Financial Sanctions Implementation Unit is a new unit established subsequent to the transfer of the Office of NAMLAC to the Ministry of Finance. Of the 2019-20 allocation, $324,000, or 95%, represents salaries for administration. The remaining $16,000, or 5%, represents overhead costs for setting up the new unit. Mr. Chair, the FSIU, which is what we call the unit, was formally established in September of 2018. The history of this unit dates back quite some time. The current and previous administration have discussed the importance of the establishment of the unit as the country was preparing for the on-site mutual evaluation by the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, a regional body which is linked with the Financial Action Task Force, and senators have heard about these task force for some time. The unit oversees the implementation and the close monitoring of financial sanctions in Bermuda and also advises the Minister of Legal Affairs of wider matters relating to anti-money laundering and the financing of terrorism. Mr. Chair, the Governor is the competent authority in Bermuda responsible for the implementation of financial sanctions. His powers are set out in the various overseas territories orders that are in force in Bermuda pursuant to the International Sanctions Act 2003 and the International Sanctions Regulations 2013. The Governor, by way of the International Sanctions Delegation of Governor's Powers, Notice 2018, transferred certain functions to the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs, which took effect on the 25th of September 2018. Mr. Chair, it must be noted that the United Kingdom retains overall responsibility for the external affairs of Bermuda, and that the special responsibility of the Governor for external affairs and defense under Section 62 of the Constitution of Bermuda is in no way affected by the delegation. In particular, under the said orders, the Minister of Legal Affairs has the power to A. Obtain evidence and information by taking such steps as considered appropriate to cooperate with any international investigation relating to the funds, economic resources, or financial transactions of a designated person. Also, issue and revoke licenses with the consent of the Secretary of State, and may grant a license authorizing an activity that would otherwise be prohibited under the said orders, and such a license can be varied or revoked by the Minister at any time with the consent of the Secretary of State. In addition, serve as reporting depository to whom a relevant institution reports or informs if it credits a frozen account pursuant to an order. Also authorize persons with power to search and investigate suspected ships, aircrafts, or vehicles. And finally, specify by regulations in the currency of the territory the amount which is to be taken as equivalent to sums expressed in sterling in the relevant order. Mr. Chair, the FSIU provides support to the Attorney General and Minister of Legal Affairs in carrying out the functions that have been delegated by the Governor. The FSIU also provides the necessary infrastructure to effectively implement targeted financial sanctions, as well as provide support to the Minister in respect of statutory functions regarding implementation of government's anti-money laundering initiatives. Mr. Chair, with regard to output measures for the FSIU, the unit ensures that the sanctions measures webpage of the government portal is updated with regard to additions or delistings for the various sanctions regimes. Thus, upon notification from HM Treasury's office, the FSIU updates the webpage within 24 hours and also notifies supervisors to immediately advise their supervised entities. In addition, the FSIU will be engaging in outreach to relevant government ministries and departments, as well as with industry, to increase awareness and provide information regarding obligations under Bermuda's sanctions regime and the role of the FSIU in implementing targeted financial sanctions. Mr. Chair, the FSIU is also keeping a watching brief on Brexit, and should the need arise, will work with the UK authorities and operational partners to ensure Bermuda's sanctions regime is functioning effectively and efficiently. Post-Brexit, the UK will establish its own regime for implementing sanctions imposed by the United Nations and UK domestic sanctions. European Union sanctions will roll over into UK law under the Sanctions and Anti-Money Laundering Act 2018. Drafting has been ongoing by the Foreign and Commonwealth Office to bring relevant sanctions in force in the UK, currently into force post-Brexit. It should be noted, Mr. Chair, that if the UK leave the EU and with the deal, there will be a transition period, and during such period, the UK will continue to implement sanctions under the EU sanctions regime. The transition period could potentially be between 1 and 2 years and would be noted in the deal. Should the UK leave the EU without a deal, the statutory instruments already drafted under the Sanctions and Anti-Money Laundering Act 2018 and tabled in the UK Parliament will come into force once the UK exits the EU. Where sanctions regimes have not yet been tabled under that legislation, the European Union Withdrawal Act 2018 allows the UK to impose sanctions under EU law until drafting and tabling of the UK legislation has occurred. The EU Withdrawal Act also allows OTs, or overseas territories, to continue to impose sanctions under EU law as set out in the various overseas territories, orders in council for sanctions regimes until the UK have implemented OT orders to bring sanctions regimes into force under the Act. Gets a bit complex. Once the UK implements the new OT orders, Bermuda will bring such orders into force under the International Sanctions Regulations 2013. Mr. Chair, currently the FSIU is comprised of a responsible head, and recruitment is underway to fill the position of legal counsel. Administrative support is provided by headquarters as needed. The head, who is Ms. Renee Fogo, is responsible for implementing targeted financial sanctions, including bringing relevant overseas territories, orders, and council into force in Bermuda, reviewing license applications in respect of the various sanctions regimes, liaising with Government House and UK authorities on sanctions matters, and assisting headquarters with Bermuda's mutual evaluation process. During the period, the head has been assisted by legal aid counsel who is seconded to the legal counsel post from the Attorney General's chambers. With regard to training and development, the FSIU benefited from training from HM Treasury's Office of Financial Sanctions Implementation, we call it OFSI, in July of 2018. OFSI team members conducted a 2-day training session on financial sanctions implementation that provided instructive information and practical exercises on dealing with financial sanctions implementation. Further, they had attended meetings at the OFSI in January 2019 and met with OFSI's director and heads of various units in order to gain more insight into the effective implementation of targeted financial sanctions. In addition, OFSI will be conducting meetings with the UK's overseas territories in Miami in March, and I believe Ms. Fogo has just returned from those meetings, and the FSIU will attend and lead a session on the implementation of targeted financial sanctions and share Bermuda's experience with respect of having certain functions delegated from the governor to the minister. And I will say at this juncture that the Deputy Governor has been instrumental in working with us to ensure that the training takes place, and we're grateful to her in that regard. I'll move on now, Mr. Chair, to 97090, which is the MIRRORS program. Mr. Chair, the MIRRORS program is newly transferred to the Ministry of Legal Affairs as a result of the Cabinet shuffle. Of its 2019-20 budget, $906,000 has been allocated. $478,000, or 53%, represents salaries for administration. The remaining $428,000, or 47%, represents overhead costs. This program is focused on socio-emotional skills development, performance coaching, and personal transformation for middle and senior school students, with an emphasis on innovative learning strategies and leadership skills. MIRRORS programs are based on creating a deep and lasting transformation in the lives of participants so they can reach their fullest potential. The long-term objective is to make better learners and build a resilient community of young adults who have positive life outcomes in education, employment, and lawfulness. There will be a reduction in the number of students served from 36 senior school students to 22 for the 2019-20 financial year, and the shift in traveling overseas to a university setting for the camp services versus hosting a residential camp locally. This change is a more cost-effective way of providing services while building students' leadership skills, allowing them to interact with overseas students and have a college campus life experience, and I mentioned that earlier. The limited venues locally and rising costs for conference and housing services would not be sustainable in the long term. Mr. Chair, the Mayor's Alumni and Friends Association will support the Mayor's program to launch the Peer Forward College Summit program for 2019-20, with a grant from Skyport. Peer Forward mobilizes students to create a college-going culture in their high school. The Peer Forward method guides more students to college by tapping the peer resource in high school. It is informed and validated by research on the key actions essential for post-secondary degree attainment. Peer Forward trains, deploys, and coaches a team of peer leaders who are charged with boosting college preparation and enrollment across their entire school. They mobilize friends and classmates to realize their true college and career potential. Mr. Chair, the budget allocation for grants for fiscal 2019-20 is found at page C16 of the approved estimates of revenue and expenditure for fiscal year 2019-20. And for this period, a grant will be provided to the Financial Intelligence Agency. In continuance of government's efforts to combat money laundering and terrorist financing, the FIA was established under the Financial Intelligence Agency Act in 2007. The FIA is the independent agency authorized to receive, gather, store, analyze, and disseminate information relating to suspected money laundering and financing of terrorism, which is received in the form of a suspicious activity report. The FIA is empowered to disseminate such information to the Bermuda Police Service and foreign intelligence authorities. Mr. Chair, $1,805,000 was allocated for fiscal 2019-20, an amount that has remained the same as fiscal year 2018-19. This represents the total amount allocated for grants provided by headquarters under Cost Center 97010. The statutory mandate of the FIA dictates that the agency must report its quarterly expenditure and provide an annual audited report to the Minister of Legal Affairs. Mr. Chair, the budget allocation for capital expenditures, and I've moved on, is found at page C9 of the estimates of revenue and expenditure. The Ministry has been allocated a total of $260,000 for fiscal 2019-20. $249,000 is allocated for video conferencing. The remaining $11,000 is intended to be used to purchase fully depreciated assets with no residual value for departments under the Ministry. Finally, Mr. Chair, it is anticipated that the Ministry of Legal Affairs Headquarters budget allocations for 2019-20 as detailed will enable the Ministry to successfully fulfill its mandate with careful monitoring and the continuing exercise of financial prudence. That completes Head 87.
Thank you, Madam AG. You'd like to proceed to the next head, which, according to our schedule, is Head 4.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And Head 4
is the Attorney
is
General's
the
chambers.
Attorney General's Chambers. Mr. Chair, the mission statement, department objectives, and current account estimates for the Attorney General's Chambers, Head 4, begin on page B93 of the budget book. Mr. Chair, as legal advisors to government, the Attorney General's Chambers is committed to providing high-quality legal advice and litigation services and to drafting sound legislation, ever mindful of the need to protect the public's interest and to safeguard and preserve the fundamental rights and freedoms enshrined in our Constitution. In doing so, we also pledge to uphold the traditions of equity, fairness, and justice inherent in the legal profession, while simultaneously remaining on the cutting edge of legal trends and technologies to ensure that we are abreast of and in accord with global trends. Mr. Chair, with regard to expenditure, a total of $5,308,000 has been allocated for chambers. This represents a decrease of $1,000 or 0% from 2018-19. Mr. Chair, the Attorney General's Chamber's objectives are to provide quality legal services to the Government of Bermuda, to advise all government ministries, departments, and entities on the law applicable to their operational requirements, to draft legislation as required to implement the government's legislative agenda, to maintain Bermuda's legislative database, and to support law reform, to draft contracts, international instruments for mutual tax information exchange, conveyances, and other documents required for public purposes, and to provide advice on private bills, and finally, to conduct litigation in the civil courts of Bermuda on behalf of the Government of Bermuda. Mr. Chair, the Attorney General's Chambers is functionally divided into 6 programs accounted for as follows. Administration under 14010, and I'll deal with that first. Administration provides administrative support to the Attorney General, Solicitor General, and Crown Counsel. This cost center provides salaries for an office manager, a receptionist, a records management clerk, and administrative assistant for accounts. It also supports the purchasing of office supplies that are common to all sections of the department. The modest year-over-year increase is due to anticipated changes in the salary grading funds allocated for an administrative post and an increase in funding for the repair and maintenance of office equipment. Under Cost Center 14020, which is advisory, Mr. Chair, that section is responsible for providing quality legal advice to all government departments and to conduct litigation matters brought by or against the government. Additionally, advisory is responsible for recovering debt owed to the government. This cost center provides salaries for 1 Solicitor General, 1 Deputy Solicitor General, 2 Senior Crown Counsel, 6 Crown Counsel, 3 Administrative Assistants, and 1 pupil. The increase is due to the additional cost for consultant services. Under Cost Center 14030, which is legislative drafting, Mr. Chair, that section advises regarding proposals to introduce or amend legislation, drafts primary and subordinate legislation for all government departments, and provides advice and support to ministers in the House of Assembly and Senate as their respective legislation progresses. Mr. Chair, this section also provides advice to ministers and the governor on legal and constitutional issues and on matters of parliamentary procedure. The salaries provided for in this cost center include those of the Chief Parliamentary Counsel, Deputy Chief Parliamentary Counsel, 5 Parliamentary Counsel, 2 Assistant Parliamentary Counsel, a Legislative Database Manager, a Legislative Editor, a Legislative Administrator, and a Legislative Database Administrator. The year-over-year budgetary decrease is due to a reallocation of funding from salaries to consultant services, which resulted in annual savings of $46,000. Under Cost Center 14040, which is the revised laws of Bermuda, this cost center supports the consolidation, periodic revision, and publication of the laws of Bermuda. It is responsible for providing members of both houses of the legislature, businesses, lawyers, and the general public with access to the revised statutes and regulations of Bermuda. It also supports the ongoing consolidation of primary and subordinate legislation. The year-over-year decrease is due to anticipated savings from other cost centers within the ministry to support software maintenance for the pro-law system. I now move on, Mr. Chair, to Cost Center 14050, which is debt collection. And, Mr. Chair, the Debt Enforcement Unit within the Attorney General's Chambers was established by the government to assist the Department of Social Insurance and the Office of the Tax Commissioner within the Ministry of Finance with the recovery of unpaid social insurance contributions, payroll tax, land tax, and other taxes owed to the government when instructed to do so by the said departments. Often, the departments have payment plans in place with debtors as an alternative to initiating actions against them. This cost center provides salaries for 1 Crown Counsel, 1 Junior Crown Counsel, and an administrator. Under Cost Center 14060, which is our law library, Mr. Chair, this program provides for the cost of maintaining the law library in the Attorney General's Chambers, which includes the purchase of books, periodicals, and the provision of access to leading online legal information sources such as LexisNexis and Westlaw. The modest increase reflects the increased cost in subscriptions. Good gracious.
We wish for that, Madam Chair.
Really. Mr. Chair, under capital acquisitions, the budget allocation for capital expenditure is found at page C9 of the estimates of revenue and expenditure. The Attorney General's Chambers has been allocated a total of $5,000 for fiscal 2019-20. More funding has been given to Chambers for capital acquisitions. This funding is intended to purchase furniture and computers to replace fully depreciated assets with no residual value. Mr. Chair, with regard to output measures, during the 2018 calendar year, 69 acts were enacted and 155 statutory instruments made. In addition to the annual budget legislation and amendments relating to anti-money laundering and anti-terrorist financing in preparation for the CFEDF on-site assessment in September, there were a number of new and amending acts to give effect to the government's legislative agenda on topics including initial coin offerings, digital asset business, economic substance, family mediation, psychological practitioners, allied health professions, and evidence, which is our audio-visual link legislation. The Bermuda Laws website, which contains all of Bermuda's current laws and subordinate legislation, is updated in real time from within Chambers, and we are continuing to make improvements to the site. Since November 2018, as a part of the e-Gazette project, statutory instruments, or BRs, are now gazetted by publication on the website, which clearly indicates the operational date. Over the past budget year, we received 15 mutual legal assistance requests, which is an increase of 4 in the number of requests than the previous year. Notwithstanding this increase, the number of days for us to respond has remained constant. The Criminal Justice International Cooperation Bermuda Act 1994 provides for fees to be charged where the cost of the assistance will be in excess of $500. Requesting jurisdictions have been required to cover costs in matters where the fees were determined to be excessive.
Madam AG, if I could just interrupt for a moment. The Senate would like to acknowledge the presence in the Senate this morning of a Minister of Home Affairs, the Honorable Walter Robban. Welcome, sir. Please continue, Madam AG.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Under staffing, there are currently 3 vacant posts within the Civil Advisory and Litigation section of the Attorney General's Chamber, namely 1 Deputy Solicitor General, 1 Crown Counsel, and 1 Administrative Assistant. The vacant posts for the Deputy Solicitor General will remain unfunded for the budget year 2019-20. The current staffing levels of the Civil Advisory section are 1 Solicitor General, 1 Deputy Solicitor General, 2 Senior Crown Counsel, 6 Crown Counsel, 2 Administrative Assistants, and 1 Paralegal to the Solicitor General. There have been no staffing changes in the Debt Enforcement Unit. Mr. Chair, with regard to the drafting section of Chambers, there are currently no vacancies. There are 7 parliamentary counsel, including the Chief and Deputy Chief, 1 consultant parliamentary counsel, and 2 assistant parliamentary counsel. In addition to these dedicated lawyers who are responsible for drafting all government bills and statutory instruments, the section is fortunate to have an excellent administrative team comprising 4 persons, each of whom plays a vital part in the timely production, publication, and consolidation of legislation. With regard to training and development, Mr. Chair, the Attorney General's Chambers include within its mandate the development of its professional and administrative staff. Members of the Civil Advisory and Administrative section of Chambers attended training and personal development courses offered by the Department of Human Resources. Members of the Advisory section also provided in-house presentations on advisory and litigation matters. The Permanent Secretary for the Ministry of Legal Affairs, Ms. Marva O'Brien, who's in the Chamber, and the Solicitor General, Melvin Douglas, attended a plenary session of the Caribbean Financial Action Task Force, or CFATF, in Barbados in November 2018. CFATF is an organization of states and territories in the Caribbean that have agreed to implement Common Countermeasures Against Money Laundering, and it is a regional organization that is associated with the Financial Action Task Force. And these members of the ministry attended various sessions, including the observation of activities surrounding the mutual evaluation process of Cayman Islands, current risk assessment, and the level of effectiveness of Cayman Islands AML-CTF system. The plenary sessions provided valuable technical guidance as Bermuda prepares for an international evaluation process of its anti-money laundering, anti-terrorist financing regime. Mr. Chair, a Crown Counsel attended the International Hague Conference, on international child abduction in October 2018 in Kingston, Jamaica. This professional development will assist with his responsibilities on behalf of the Attorney General under the International Child Abduction Act 1998. The Chief Parliamentary Counsel and one of the Assistant Parliamentary Counsel attended a conference of the Commonwealth Association of Legislative Counsel for Drafters from the UK, Crown Dependencies, and Overseas Territories in Jersey in September 2018 regarding legislative challenges of Brexit. Quite useful. On return, the CPC gave a presentation to the drafting team to share knowledge acquired at the conference. Members of the drafting section also attended, Mr. Chair, training, management, and personal development courses offered by the Department of Human Resources, and one of the Assistant Parliamentary Counsel continues to work towards obtaining a drafting diploma offered online by the University of Athabasca in Canada. The other Assistant Parliamentary Counsel will start the course in short order. Members of the drafting team take turns in giving in-house monthly presentations, which are quite useful, and lead roundtable discussions on drafting matters.
Madam AG, if I could just interrupt for a second and just as a time check, we're halfway through the allocated time of 2 hours, so there's 1 hour remaining for the debate, just as a time check.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Please continue.
Mr. Chair, with regard to initiatives in the forthcoming year, under the advisory section, the principal focus will continue to be on the development of Bermudians in chambers, particularly in using senior counsel to assist junior counsel and pupils with advice and guidance on advisory and litigation matters. The advisory section intends to fill the vacant posts of Crown Counsel and the post of Administrative Assistant in the forthcoming fiscal year. Mr. Chair, improving the personal development of staff will remain paramount by providing them the opportunity to attend training courses offered by the Department of Human Resources. The advisory section will continue to review contracts of the various ministries and departments to aid the same in making better decisions in contract negotiations. We will review the assignment of specific counsel to provide advisory and litigation representation to ministries and departments, seek to improve our case management system to reduce our demand for paper resources, and provide more in-house presentations by counsel on a variety of legal topics. With regard to legislative drafting, staff and training, Mr. Chair, a principal focus will continue to be on the development of Bermudians in legislative drafting. Experienced drafters, including the Consultant Parliamentary Counsel, will continue to mentor the Assistant Parliamentary Counsel so that they will be able to draft independently. And finally, Mr. Chair, with regard to our Legislative Information System, or LIMS, the legislation is produced quickly and accurately using LIMS, which is customized to our Bermuda drafting style. This, combined with the important role of the legislative editor, has kept the number of errors and inconsistencies found in legislation during House and Senate debates to a minimum, thereby expediting the legislative process. The maintenance of LIMS is through a Canadian vendor who provides timely professional assistance whenever necessary and regularly updates our software with the latest versions and technical support. Mr. Chair, it's intended to continue to improve our database and to post new laws within a week of enactment on the Bermuda Laws online website, which is hosted locally by Firemines Limited. Consolidation, which is the incorporation of amendments into existing laws, is more time-consuming since the amendments are checked by the drafter as well as the legislative database manager. The goal is to complete the process within 1 month of the enactment of the amending legislation, which was achieved in the last few years. Subject to resolving all outstanding technical and security issues, Mr. Chair, with the assistance of the Information and Digital Technology Office, it is anticipated that legislation will be introduced in 2019 to declare this electronic version to be the official law of Bermuda. And that concludes that head, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam AG. And we'll move on to the final head, which is Head 23, Child and Family Services, and that can be found on B96 in the blue budget book.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, the Department of Child and Family Services is responsible for promoting and protecting the best interests of children, adolescents, adults, and families in order to enhance their social functioning and their quality of life. The Department provides daycare services, care and protection services for our children, residential and home-based services for families, assessment, intervention, and counseling services for children, adolescents, and families. Mr. Chair, the current account estimates for Head 23, Department of Child and Family Services, as stated, begin on page B96 of the estimates book. A total of $15,915,000 has been allocated to Head 23 for 2019-20. This represents an increase of $200,000 or 1% change from the original budget for 2018-19. The Department of Child and Family Services continues to focus on developing an integrated service that allows children, adolescents, and families to receive services that are appropriate and coordinated, thus meeting the needs of families and assisting them with the diverse challenges they face. These challenges include, but are not limited to, lack of parenting, social and life skills, the ability to maintain housing, secure employment, effective budgeting, the abuse of substances, involvement in antisocial behavior, cognitive deficits, educational challenges, mental health issues, and anger management, which all contribute to these diverse challenges that are now seemingly exacerbated by the challenging economic times families are facing. The Department of Child and Family Services, Mr. Chair, is charged with the responsibility of promoting and protecting the best interests and social well-being of children, adolescents, adults, and families. Mr. Chair, in order to meet these responsibilities, the Department operates 4 programs. Program 2301, which is services to children and young persons. Program 2302, which is services to individuals and families. Program 2303, which is residential treatment services, and Program 2304, which is administration. Mr. Chair, in the fiscal year 2018-19, the Department of Child and Family Services continued with its efforts of providing a seamless continuum of services to children and families by examining and redeploying resources to meet changing program and client needs. These changes continue to be implemented based on performance quality improvement focus that is consistent with best practice standards. These standards are defined by accreditation requirements, Mr. Chair, in the area of human service provision. Service improvements have been achieved by the Department implementing a strategy that begins with the enhancement of a structured decision-making tool designed specifically for Bermuda, giving account to our social and cultural norms. This tool utilizes a comprehensive assessment that ensures clients receive the appropriate service from the appropriate agency. This process reduces referral duplication, closes previously identified gaps in service delivery, and increases overall effectiveness and efficiency of programs. Utilization of this tool has resulted in an improved comprehensive service delivery system that has increased response time to initial referrals. It enhances appropriate prioritizing of referrals according to risk and ensures that the highest risks are addressed first, resulting in better responses and positive outcomes for clients. Mr. Chair, the Department of Child and Family Service business units are discussed by program as follows. As regards Program 2301, which is services to children and young persons, on page B96, the Happy Valley Child Care is covered under this program. The estimate for the fiscal year 2019-20 is $38,000. The output measures for the Happy Valley, I'm getting time wrong. Excuse me, Mr. Chair. The output measures for the Happy Valley Child Care Program are found on page B99 of the estimates book. For Business Unit 33010, there is a budget allocation of $38,000 for fiscal year 2019-20. This represents an increase of $120,000 or 13% from 2018-19. This increase is a direct result of staff increments, and we continue to contain expenditure within budget allocated. For fiscal year 2019-20, the feeding program, the clothing program, and the enrichment program will have to be curtailed so as to minimize the impact on the wraparound services provided to high-risk children referred for care and a Head Start at the Happy Valley Child Care Center. Happy Valley Child Care Center, the only government-operated child care center, provides high-quality child care for children from 3 months to 4 years of age and accommodates a maximum of 40 children. Most of the children are from the Pembroke, Devonshire, and Warwick areas, but the center also has an intake of children from other parts of the island. Mr. Chair, government has mandated that priority be given to children referred by helping agencies such as the Department of Child and Family Services, Teen Services, Financial Assistance, Department of Health, and the Child Development Program. These agencies, along with families experiencing various challenges, account for 60% of the child care center's intake. Mr. Chair, Happy Valley Child Care Center, the monthly fee is $400 for all children enrolled. If a child is in the care of the Department of Child and Family Services, they do not qualify for the child daycare allowance, and as such, their costs are absorbed by the department. During the fiscal year 2017-18, the amount of fees collected was $192,000. It is important to note that the cost per child is higher than the fees currently paid by the parents. This is because the Happy Valley Child Care Center, which is a first-class facility, and I've been there and it's absolutely wonderful, is specifically designed to meet the comprehensive needs of young children. It provides an extensive curriculum of high academic standards with trained teachers who are continuously involved in the professional growth and development of the children. No, let me restate that. They're continuously involved in their professional growth and development. It offers enrichment programs that encourage parental involvement and growth development to strengthen family functioning and improve child development. Comprehensive services offered at the Happy Valley Daycare Center include an intervention program, a full nutritional program that provides morning snack, lunch, and afternoon snack that is monitored and approved by the Health Department's public health nutritionist, mandatory parenting classes and involvement, movement, computer activities, reading and writing, science, math, community service, field trips, riding, gardening, tennis, and swimming classes, along with other curriculum activities which are offered at the Child Care Center to assist in the overall development of the children at the center. In July 2018, 16 children graduated from the program and were well prepared for attending preschool, with 2 of the graduates reading at the emergent level, which is very impressive. Happy Valley Child Care Center consistently utilizes child assessment outcomes for classroom planning and individual intervention lesson activities. The high-scope curriculum and assessment tool reflected outstanding results that validate Happy Valley Child Care Center's commitment to an inclusive learning model. The results for infants and toddlers and preschoolers map steady improvement in all areas of developmental growth. Mr. Chair, Happy Valley Child Care Center received reaccreditation with no conditions from the Bermuda National Standards Committee for 2018, and it will be up for their 3rd reaccreditation in 2020. As a part of the accreditation, PQI process DCFS is required to obtain feedback from clients on a quarterly basis. There is still and increased demand for child care placement at the Happy Valley Child Care Center. 150 applications were received for the 2018-19 period, with the center only able to enroll 20 new students, which is unfortunate because the program is excellent. During the last school year, 4 students withdrew, 2 relocated to the UK, 1 benefiting from the pilot preschool program at Ward Preschool, and 1 transferred to a private nursery. The inability to accommodate increasing demands, coupled with the need of care for special needs children, remain ongoing challenges facing the Happy Valley Child Care Center. Mr. Chair, fathers and mothers are actively involved in parenting classes, school programs and activities, parent-teacher conferences, and social interaction opportunities with their children. Grandparents and extended family members have been positively involved in the center's program as well. Happy Valley Daycare Center, or Child Care Center, I should say, continues to uphold its commitment to partnering with community resources. In collaboration with the Child Development Program, 2-year-old assessments are conducted at the center. Intervention services and parenting classes are also provided by CDP on site. Happy Valley Child Care Center continues to serve as an internship site for the Bermuda College students enrolled in the Child Care Certification Program, as well as a community service site for public and private schools. A broad range of community activity involvement designed for children's enrichment learning include giving out food to the elderly, visiting senior care centers, visiting Dolphin Crest, historical sites across the island, and hosting its annual Week of the Young Child mini fair that invites neighboring nurseries and preschools in celebration of young children. This event is greatly supported by the alumni, parents, and family in the community. Community resources that support children's learning on-site are presentations from SunSmart, dental care from the Government Health Department, and Fire and Police Services. Support services for speech, occupational therapy, and physical therapy are provided by the Government Department of Health and the Child Development Program. Mr. Chair, Happy Valley Child Care Center being housed in an older building that is in need of constant maintenance and repair. We would like to thank Works and Engineering or Public Works for their commitment and supportive services in addressing the maintenance needs of the center throughout the year. Happy Valley Daycare Child Care Center endeavors to maintain a first-class facility while educating children in a safe, healthy, and caring environment. Mr. Chair, on behalf of my team and the government, I would like to thank all the staff at Happy Valley Child Care Center, their active parent-teacher association, their volunteers and community partners for their continued dedication to Bermuda's most valuable resources, our children. Mr. Chair, with regard to Center 2302, which is services to individuals and families, which begins on B96, the activities covered in that program are intake, assessment, investigation, family preservation, which is formerly known as family services, foster care and counseling, and life skills, which is formerly known as Bermuda Youth Counseling Services. The estimate for these activities for fiscal year 2019-20 is $5,961,000. This represents a $64,000 or 1% increase compared to the 2018-19 budget allocation. Mr. Chair, the Intake, Assessment, and Investigation Unit provides first response and protective services to the children of Bermuda. This is achieved with the use of our structured decision-making tool that was referenced earlier. This tool, when used in this area, provides guidance to the social worker indicating the appropriate response time to initiate having sight of a child, begin the investigation, and any related services required. The output measures for this unit can be found on page B99 of the estimates book. Mr. Chair, the Intake and Assessment Team provides care and protective services to the children of Bermuda. This is achieved through 3 specialized units: the Screening, Investigations, and Assessment Team, with a total of 15 staff. The output measures for intake and assessments can be found on page B99 of the estimates book. Mr. Chair, the investigation team received 1,139 new referrals on children. This was a slight decrease from 2017, when 1,222 new referrals were screened by the Department of Child and Family Services. The shift to one central screening system continues to have significant impact on the number of new cases that are processed for investigative or assessment services within the department. All screenings are reviewed to ensure that workers make contact in the designated time frames while providing immediate feedback to the referrer. This service is reviewed quarterly to ensure that best practice standards are maintained. This team also received reaccreditation in October 2018. Mr. Chair, the investigation team completed 100% of the screening assessments in the stipulated time frames. Of the total number of cases screened, 917 were assessed as needing investigation or assessment services. 222 did not meet the threshold for child protection and were therefore screened out and referred to other services within the community. Mr. Chair, referrals were received for the following types of abuse: neglect, 465, sexual abuse, 244, physical abuse, 200, behavior problems, 100, emotional abuse, 84, and other services, 46. Mr. Chair, the investigation team continues to see an increase in the number of children referred for child-on-child, 124 cases, sexual abuse or sexualized behavior. This accounts for 51% of the total number of sexual abuse referrals. Children exposed to domestic violence has consistently accounted for the highest number of neglect referrals for the past 5 years. In 2018, the department received 209 referrals for children who are exposed to family violence. This accounts for 45% of the neglect referrals for 2018. The vast majority of the referrals are received from the police, 291, and the schools, 336. Concerning figures, Mr. Chair, of the 917 that was screened in for investigation and services, 528 have been closed or transferred within the department for additional support services. To assist with a better understanding of the investigation procedure, the process includes the following activities. The referral is prioritized based on the nature of the report and can require a 24-hour, 5-day, or 10-day response. The screening process will determine if police involvement is needed. Records are checked to determine if the case is already known to the department. An investigation plan is developed. The child is interviewed. The parent, guardian, immediate family members, and other collateral resources are interviewed when applicable. Witnesses would also be interviewed by the police. Medical and other assessment reports are obtained. The child's immediate safety is assessed for all in-home abuse cases. A secondary interview may be required based on the information that's gathered. There's a determination made if the report is verified, substantiated, suspected, inconclusive, or unsubstantiated. The department conducts face-to-face contacts based on the level of risk, and an outcome letter is provided to the mandated reporter and the parent or guardian. The investigation process has two main purposes, Mr. Chair. Firstly, to gather as much relevant factual information as possible, and secondly, to assess to determine if there are immediate service needs of the child and the family. This may include DCFS providing ongoing interventions from other teams or community partners. This procedure is irrespective of the referral being a DCFS worker or someone within the community. Mr. Chair, the intake section continues to work cooperatively with the families that they are investigating and assessing. When the investigations are required on new and open cases to the department, a safety assessment and plan must be completed on all in the home. The goal of the safety assessment is to ensure the children are safe and that the parent or guardian has agreed on a plan. The primary objective is for the department and the family to work together without seeking a court order. As a result, the investigation social workers completed 589 safety assessments. This form of engagement with parents allows the department to ensure that the children are safe while promoting and preserving the integrity of the family. Risk assessments are completed before a case is transferred or closed, and the team completed 552. The number of safety assessments completed increased significantly from 432 in 2017. Mr. Chair, the assessment team is required to complete comprehensive assessments on children who are experiencing issues ranging from substance abuse to cognitive challenges. The team administered 257 assessments and completed 55 reports that provided parents, social workers, and other professionals with clear recommendations for intervention and support services for each child and their family. The assessment team provides in-service presentations within the department and in the community. Mr. Chair, the foster care section of the Department of Child and Family Services is responsible for providing alternative living arrangements for children under the age of 18 who are in need of out-of-home placement. The team was responsible for a total of 88 children, their birth parents, and foster families during the last budget year. This represents a numerical increase by 8 foster children, birth families, and foster families from the year prior, During the last budget year, the foster care program has serviced a total of 11 therapeutic foster children. The children in this category have a variety of physical, cognitive, emotional, and behavioral challenges. Therapeutic foster parents are compensated at a higher rate than traditional foster parents. They sign contracts that outline the levels of care expected based on the children's needs. Mr. Chair, at the end of 2018, a total of 1 child reunified with their birth parent. 6 youth reached the age of 18 and aged out of the foster care system, but continue to reside with their foster families, so they aged out of the formal system. 3 foster youth were transferred to the psychoeducation program during the year. Mr. Chair, the foster care coordinator recruited 4 new foster parents this year, which is wonderful news. As the community changes, it has become increasingly difficult to recruit foster parents. Despite the challenges, the foster parents who are being recruited are of a high caliber and willing to work in partnership with foster care, and remain hard-pressed still to have an open and suitable available placements, and suitable available placements for emergencies and hard-to-care-for children, so that remains an ongoing concern. Mr. Chair, in May 2018, Foster Parent Awareness Month, the foster care team arranged for tea to honor all foster parents, and each foster parent was presented with a gift and a certificate. The keynote speaker was a former foster child, Janita Parenchi, and she discussed the importance of foster parents, and her former foster parents were present for the presentation. The department received numerous positive comments about this event from foster parents, and it's important, Mr. Chair, that we continue to honor them for the good work that they do for our children. Mr. Chair, the department would like to acknowledge the foster parents of Bermuda, our unsung heroes, who provide loving, stable homes to children who have experienced significant trauma as a result of abuse and or neglect. Every day they make a foster child's life better by their numerous acts of care and kindness. Also, the department would like to acknowledge the Foster Parent Association, who work in partnership with the foster care team to support foster parents and provide the funds to enable foster children to participate in educational trips, attend specialized recreational programs, and to resource laptops for school. Mr. Chair, Counseling and Life Skills Services have a mission to advance and promote the emotional well-being of youth up to 18 years of age and their families. And we call it CLSS, and they offer services that strengthen the knowledge, skills, positive experience, and support systems of individuals and families to make healthy life choices. Individual and family issues include, but are not limited to, family and relationship dynamics, co-parenting, grief and loss, communication, trauma, and adolescent substance abuse. In order to best serve the needs of clients, CLSS counselors work collaboratively with them to complete specific assessments or screening tools to measure progress in treatment planning that is geared towards positive growth and development. CLSS continues to align services and practices with the DSFS strategic plan. The aim of the restructuring of services is to offer a more client-focused and efficient mode of service delivery. DCFS requires that all referrals be made through the DCFS intake section. The referrals are screened and assessed to determine the needs of the individual child and their family. Mr. Chair, to meet Council on Accreditation standards, quarterly performance quality improvement meetings occurred during this year to review program data, client trends, perform file audits, client, staff, and stakeholder feedback, and staff development. We continue to align services and practices so that they are consistent with the department's strategic plan. Mr. Chair, CLSS facilitated substance education groups at Cedar Bridge Academy and Whitney Institute. In addition to the groups, CLSS team members provided presentations to several community organizations. The Department of Child and Family Services establishment of centralized intake and assessment allows for a more coordinated assessment of client needs and integrated service delivery. The total number of clients for 2018 was 187. 105 youth and 82 parents received counseling services. Mr. Chair, new referrals for the year totaled 77. The highest number of male referrals was in the 15 to 18 age group, totaling 17. In the female category, the 10 to 14 and the 15 to 18-year-old categories were the highest with 11. It is important to note that clients or families present with multi-problem issues such as high-risk behaviors, adolescent substance misuse, parent-child relational issues, parental relationship issues, trauma and emotional behavioral issues. Family and emotional behavioral issues are the leading trend. Mr. Chair, we continue to receive domestic violence referrals. 30 parents and 20 children were referred in 2018. Services for domestic violence is a specialized service for the batterer and the victim. Hence, clients are referred to community agencies for services. CLSS provided counseling to some children who witnessed domestic violence, but it has highlighted a continued training need for this section and other sections working with children who witnessed domestic violence. CLSS also provides assistance with co-parenting services and support to children of divorce. Mr. Chair, I move on to Program 2303, which is Residential Treatment Services at B96. These services include the Brangman Home, the Oleander Cottage, the Youth Development Center, and administration. For this program, there is a budget allocation of $7,173,000. This represents 2% or $170,000 decrease from the 2018-19 budget allocation. Mr. Chair, Residential Treatment Services provides a continuum of intervention services to children between the ages of 12 and 18 years. These are adolescents who are deemed to be at risk in the community and requiring care and protection in a safe and structured environment. All children placed in this service are on care orders and as such become the responsibility of the Director of Child and Family Services. Mr. Chair, Residential Treatment Services provides 24-hour services. The young ladies are located at the Brangman Home, while the young men are receiving temporary services at Oleander Cottage. The Youth Development Center is currently closed due to extensive renovations, and it is being fully upgraded to meet the needs of the children and safety standards as outlined by our accrediting body. This has been an extensive process as the building was found to be in need of more renovation than initially thought. As a result, the decision was made to do complete and major renovation to the building, replacing windows with shatterproof glass, new air conditioning systems to replace any window units, new security and fire alarm systems, which will include upgrades to the camera systems to protect both children and staff and assist in any investigation should the need arise. Mr. Chair, when operational, it is utilized to provide one-to-one and special management of residents based on their needs as indicated by ongoing evaluation and if they are placed in the care of the director as a result of criminal behaviors. Brangman Home, Mr. Chair, has also had renovations recently. However, recent rains have exposed some weaknesses in the roof, and this is being addressed. and this cost was to replace furnishings inside that were damaged. The repairs will also bring 2 of the bedrooms back online as they were impacted by mold, mildew, and water damage. A recent survey of the security and alarm systems has shown the need for upgrades and additional cameras, and this is also being addressed.
Just another time check. We have 26 minutes left for the debate.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll press on as quickly as my voice allows.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, the inclusion of family is a key component of the service provision. When this is not possible, alternative community-based relationships and resources are used to develop an appropriate plan. The program at Residential Treatment Services also includes the monitoring of clients on transition in preparation for family reunification. The goal is to have children transition within 12 months of placement or to implement an individual plan that may include independent living, depending on age and family circumstances. Mr. Chair, during the 18-19 budget year, Residential Treatment Services provided community-based services to children on transition in the community, as well as those eligible for discharge. This has resulted in a more seamless response to clients and families. Residential Treatment Services offers group living, individual and group counseling, family assessments and interventions, parent groups as needed, vocational and educational planning, and life skills development. Aftercare and interagency interaction services are based on the individual needs of the adolescent. Mr. Chair, Residential Treatment Services remained within the estimated cost for the 18-19 budget year. However, we have been faced with many challenges related to the number of children receiving services, the bed space available, and the emotional and behavioral challenges they present. As a result, we have received provisional accreditation status until we can address the current state of the physical plant and bed space. The administrative responsibilities associated with accreditation dictate that we continue to maintain a 4-year strategic plan and the breaking down of that plan into achievable annual goals. These annual goals, Mr. Chair, are ongoing objectives and include the expected outcomes for the program. The quality of ongoing service is evaluated by a Performance Quality Improvement System, or PQI. You heard me mention that earlier. The PQI consistently reviews data related to the profiles of clients and the ongoing evaluation of the services provided. This process is designed to ensure that RTS is responding to the client needs and is consistent with best practice standards. Mr. Chair, the fiscal budget for 2019-20 continues to reflect the Department's commitment to ongoing quality improvement based on sound statistical data and empirical research. In 2018-19, client data again indicated that the majority of children requiring this service had family relationship issues and childhood trauma. Due to trauma-induced behaviors with residents, RTS continues to utilize therapeutic and family components of the program, maintaining its partnership with Cornell University as they continue to provide RTS staff with therapeutic crisis intervention, or TCI, and children and residential environment care training. Those TCI and care curriculums are based on empirical research and provide a foundational philosophy and tangible behavior management skill set for staff to provide effective care for all children and families that experience crisis in their lives. Mr. Chair, RTS provided in-house services for 20 adolescents in 2018. This total included 9 males and 11 females. Client services included case management of children as indicated by individual assessments and service plans. Interventions included cottage programs, transition, family reunification, and aftercare. Mr. Chair, our client profiles for 2018-19 indicated that 100% of adolescents involved in the services had family relationship issues. The majority of children, both male and female, had experienced childhood trauma, including abandonment, abuse, grief, and domestic violence. This data demonstrates a wide range of specialist services required for dealing effectively with the children and families in need of our services. Mr. Chair, with a continued focus on the best interests of the child, in 2019-20 budget year, RTS will engage in a restructuring exercise as we anticipate working even closer with other agencies and community resources to streamline services and to maximize the use of existing resources. To give some statistical data of the client base we are experiencing within RTS, the data from 2018 highlights trauma as a prominent factor for the young people placed in RTS. Of the components featured in the trauma category, neglect, attachment difficulties, and abandonment represent the most profound challenges. 89% of clients experience neglect, 84% experience attachment difficulties that have adversely affected their ability to engage in healthy interpersonal relationships. 100% of all children at RTS have parent-child challenges. 74% of the client population experience mood disturbances disorders. 47% display learning challenges. Mental illness, cognitive challenges is evidenced across 63% of parents of children in the RTS program. 53% are substance dependent. Domestic violence among the adults has been witnessed by 40% of the residents and has likely contributed to their trauma. 100% receive psychiatric or psychological interventions for the year. For 37% of the residents, housing difficulties presented a barrier to discharge. 8 of the 20 residents at RTS have been identified as long-term as they have no plausible family reunification plan. Mr. Chair, over the previous year, residential treatment services has successfully met, and if you'll bear with me, I think it's important to give this information so that senators and the community have a snapshot of what we're dealing with and the allocations.
Please continue.
That are made. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Over the previous year, residential treatment services has successfully met the majority of the planned outcomes and outputs seen on pages B100 and 101 of the budget book. Statistical data and the performance quality improvement process has been consistently used to monitor quality and to determine changes needed to improve the service provided. The 2019-20 budget is designed to continue providing resources that allows this program to provide a quality service to children and families. Mr. Chair, the Department of Child and Family Services Family Preservation Team operates under a sound case management and assessment model which comprehensively assesses the family and child's needs and develops service plans with the family, child, and stakeholders to maximize intervention and positive outcomes for the families. The ultimate goal is to reduce or eliminate the circumstances in the family that have been or are causing abuse or risk of abuse, such as emotional and or physical abuse, to the child, and to maintain the child or children in the home environment. In order to achieve this goal, Family Preservation Services, or DCFS, requires its social workers and social work assistants to manage cases in compliance with both family preservation standards and in accordance with the policies and procedures of the Department, structured decision-making, assessment, reassessment, and service planning processes. This report will highlight the performance of the Family Preservation Team and the client outcomes for the calendar year January through December 2018. The report will also highlight some of the objectives of the annual plan for 2019. Mr. Chair, the DCFS Family Preservation Team receives cases from the DCFS Intake Team and from DCFS out-of-home services such as foster care, psychiatric ed, or residential treatment services. Family preservation is tasked with providing ongoing intervention to monitor and ensure the safety of children at risk of abuse or neglect, assist families to improve family functioning, increase child well-being, reduce the need for placement in out-of-home care, and to enable children in out-of-home care to return safely to their families. Mr. Chair, family preservation services are provided to clients of the Department of Child and Family Service either through consent of parents or under the authority of the family of a family court order. If child safety is an assessed concern by the intake investigators, family preservation services is mandated. Mr. Chair, upon consent, the family preservation services are also provided to a young person transitioning from the care of the director at the age of 18. The purpose of this service is to reduce the likelihood of future harm and to provide support and assistance to the young person as the family preservation workers are required by SDM protocol to increase contact with families based on the family's level of assessed risk. In simplest terms, high risk requires 1 weekly minimum face-to-face contact, moderate risk requires twice monthly minimum face-to-face contact, and low risk requires once monthly minimum face-to-face contact. All levels of risk also require collateral contact.
I don't want to force you. It's your decision, but we finish at 6 minutes after 12. It's 8 minutes to 12 now.
Okay.
I leave that in your hands, but I just want to give them some time to ask a few questions.
Sure. I'll continue on. I've done that. Mr. Chair, the approval by Cabinet of the reorganization of DCFS and the concurrent approval to recruit has begun to show its benefits, with the department beginning to allocate staffing resources accordingly. Once completed, this will allow DCFS to accommodate the increased need for child protection, investigation, family preservation, and foster care services through best practice standards and reducing the impact of increasing caseload overload on staffing resources. The consequence of inadequate staffing resources in child welfare can have a catastrophic consequence on child and family. Caseload management has improved during 2018 as caseload numbers have slightly decreased. However, the complexity of cases and risk levels has been high. Thus, the job of the family preservation worker remains a very intensive and complex enterprise. Mr. Chair, Management Services job description reviews were completed in the third quarter of 2018, thus allowing recruitment to bring DCFS staffing at 100% in alignment with the approved reorganization. It is the department's goal to have recruitment into vacant positions completed by the beginning of the second quarter of 2019. Mr. Chair, the data below is an overview of the statistical outputs and outcomes for the family preservation team for the year 2018, and this is also found on page B19 of the budget book. Yeah, and Mr. Chair is asking me to allow some time for questions, and I'm challenged because I have some very good information here about psycho air, which I definitely want to get into the public domain.
I'd appreciate allowing some time for questions. I know it's a very large brief, but we only have 2 hours allocated for this particular section, so it's in your hands, Madam AG, but I would appreciate allowing some time for other senators to ask questions.
Okay, how much time do we have, Mr. Chair?
I have precisely 12 minutes left for the whole debate on these heads.
Okay. I will pass over family intervention. I will keep reading, Mr. Chair. In 2018, DCFS made concerted effort to increase the skills of its frontline family intervention workers in engaging and meeting the needs of the clients we serve through the introduction of Home Builders core curriculum. The training is designed to introduce the team to the Home Builders program philosophy, program structure, and the treatment practice that is fundamental to delivering high-quality Home Builders family preservation and reunification services. And there were several skills that were attained, which I won't read at this time. Okay. It's hard to cherry pick for this one. Mr. Chair, the activity covered in Program 2304 is administration, and that's at page B96. The estimate for this program for the fiscal year 1819 was $1,500,000, I'm on page 45, and $57,000. The estimate for 1920 is $1,745,000, which reflects $186,000 or 12% increase. Mr. Chair, the administration section of the department is responsible for the general supervision of the agencies within the department. All staff development and training is delivered through this section, and as previously highlighted, training in all sections of the department has been purposefully aligned with the overarching goal of providing a comprehensive, seamless continuum of services that meet the complex needs of our client population. Mr. Chair, the administration section is responsible for reviewing all policies and procedures and making the necessary recommendations that will expand the capacity, scope, and quality of our social service delivery system. Given the current fiscal restraints coupled with the increase in demand for more specialized and therapeutic services, the administration section continues to review all of its resources to ensure they meet clients' needs. In this budget year, Mr. Chair, the administration section will finalize the implementation of its approved reorganization structure and strategic plan, complete recruitment so that the department is fully staffed, and look for continued opportunities of performance quality improvement. They will continue with modernizing the department's strategy of providing comprehensive assessments of all referrals so that clients receive the appropriate service from the appropriate agency, thereby reducing referrals and enhancing outcomes, thus ensuring that each section maintains their accreditation standards. Mr. Chair, and this is the piece I wanted to make sure I highlighted today, with regard to the psychoeducational program, and it's important that I read this because the questions always arise, and I'm hopeful that colleagues in getting this information, this will be answering questions that you may have wanted to put, because the brief is very comprehensive. As regards to psychoeducational program, during the course of 1819, that budget year, a total of 20 clients were serviced overseas in therapeutic placement for a complexity of issues identified across the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual of Mental Disorders, and they call that the DSM. The purpose of the DSM-V, and that's what it's called, is to provide clear descriptions of diagnostic categories in order to enable clinicians to diagnose and treat people with various mental health disorders. Each client received an assessment from local service providers that determined an individualized treatment plan and intensive interventions according to the diagnostic categories defined by the DSM-V. Mr. Chair, the Psycho-Ed Committee, in the best interest of the child, utilizes an overseas service provider that specializes primarily in providing clinical and comprehensive assessments at a university hospital. The implementation of such an assessment is utilized to assist the Department of Child and Family Services in obtaining a clear and comprehensive understanding of the needs of the referred psycho-ed clients without an identified diagnosis or those that did not engage at all with local service providers. The comprehensive overseas assessment assisted in the development of a dynamic, individualized treatment plan that has facilitated most appropriate match of local community resources or an overseas therapeutic placement that will meet the client's specific needs. All children and parents involved in the psychoeducational program are informed of all aspects of the program before being placed. The court also speaks with the child and confirms with the parents that they fully understand what is involved, the location of the program, as well as the expected length of stay. Parents who are able to travel are assisted, in many cases, by either the department or the program the child is attending to visit for Parent Weekend, which includes on-site family therapy sessions. Mr. Chair, a total of 6 psycho-ed clients were approved for an overseas placement at the University of Neuropsychiatric Institute for a comprehensive overseas assessment. The comprehensive assessment and treatment, which is a CAT program, at the University Neuropsychiatric Institute located in Utah, offered our clients a 4 to 6 week comprehensive clinical evaluation in a safe and secure environment. The multidisciplinary treatment team assessed psychiatric and medical conditions, provided behavioral and educational assessments, psychological testing, therapy, and when necessary, addressed chemical dependency issues. The program included psychiatric evaluations provided by board-certified child and adolescent psychiatrists with diagnostic expertise in major depression, bipolar, schizophrenia, ADHD, reactive attachment, autistic spectrum disorders, and substance abuse. The CAP program conducted full psychological and neuropsychological testing and therapy provided by PhD psychologists. Most importantly, CAP utilized a collaborative approach constructed by a complete multidisciplinary team consisting of child psychiatrists, pediatricians, psychologists, nurses, licensed clinical social workers, recreational therapists, art therapists, music therapists, and educational specialists. And I highlight these points because those are not services that are offered here in Bermuda for our children. Mr. Chair, 2 psycho-ed clients who completed the CAP program were recommended for treatment in an overseas therapeutic placement that matched the determined diagnosis and other treatment recommendations. Okay.
Can I give him 5 minutes for questions?
No, I have to finish this. Mr. Chair, the current data revealed that of the 20 children receiving treatment, 85% were male and 15% were female. Clients presented with significant problems in various DSMV multi-axial classifications. This data is identical to the data collected in previous budget years. Also identical was that all psycho-ed clients had an Axis V diagnosis categorized as psychosocial and environmental problems. A psychosocial or environmental problem was defined in terms of a negative life event, an environmental deficiency, and I draw your attention to this because these were the problems identified earlier that we're finding, which are leading children to have to avail themselves of the psycho-ed services. So this is, in fact, a serious problem in our community. As I was saying, a psychosocial environmental problem was defined in terms of a negative life event, an environmental deficiency, a familial or other interpersonal stress, an inadequacy of social support, or other problem relating to the context in which a person's difficulties develop. Okay. And this is very important. Mr. Chair, notably 12 male psycho-ed clients serviced overseas who were diagnosed as conduct disordered, involved in antisocial and criminal behaviors in the community, had GAF scores, which are Global Assessment of Functioning scores, ranging from 48 to 51, with a mean of 50. This data correlates directly with the definitions that I have not had a chance to read. Hence demanding that the Department of Child and Family Services provide specific intensive clinical treatment for a longer period of time, as well as an intensive local family support plan. Mr. Chair, the Ministry of Education continues to lack resources and is not equipped to service clients who are conduct disordered and high risk in the community. Consequently, applications are made to the Psycho-Ed Committee requesting an overseas placement for a young person that is not able to be serviced in a traditional school environment. And this is important to note. A total of 22 Psycho-Ed clients, 100%, received alternative education due to huge educational gaps prior to being enrolled in an overseas therapeutic placement. The Ministry of Education has had an increased demand to continue to seek alternative educational placements with local vendors in the community prior to referring a child to Psycho-Ed for services overseas. Large demands continue to be placed on the Department of Child and Family Services as a result of the Ministry of Education's lack of resources and the overall inability to service children in a traditional school setting. Without the high-risk intervention team, the Department of Child and Family Services lacks an adequate response to the referrals, the increase in referrals for this group. Where skill set and resources allow, family and educational assessments and school support are provided by our assessment, counseling, and life skills teams and our residential care officers. Also, there has been no relief in the time spent preparing court documents to support care and supervision orders. Consequently, client contact time continues to decline due to the demands of the family court process, guidelines, and overall expectations. Today, there are 10 clients overseas, 8 males and 2 females, and 2 psychoed referrals pending a review by the psychoed committee. They range in age from 12, which is very young, to 18 years old, with the median age being 15 years old. We are often questioned on the value of the programs to the taxpayer, and yes, they are costly, but we must consider the value of our children, and if we deem them to be paramount, we must continue to provide those professionals who are charged with their care and protection the resources and tools needed to do what is in their best interest. And Mr. Chair, I'll close. At this time, I'd like to thank the staff within the Department of Child and Family Services for their dedication to providing effective services to those families requiring the array of services they provide, and to remind colleagues that this month is, in fact, the month to celebrate social workers. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Madam AG. We have precisely 30 seconds left. What I was going to suggest is that those who have questions or comments on this, please feel free to address them to the AG after Senate has retired for lunch, so that you do have an opportunity to ask your questions. And I would remind senators that the heads and the time limits are chosen by the opposition, and it is up to the government senators who are presenting to determine their length of time that they speak. So the times are set, the heads are set, and we have to work within those parameters. So with those few words, Madam AG, I would ask that you move your heads.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that heads 87, 4, and 23 be approved.
Are there any objection? No objection, so moved. If we could now move on to the next order of business for the day, which is under the Ministry of Tourism and Transport. And again, 2 hours has been allocated for this debate, and we will be considering heads 48 and 35, and that will be the Ministry of Tourism and Transport Headquarters, Public Transportation, and head 48 first. And I understand that Senator Caesar will be presenting?
Yes, that's correct, Mr. Chair.
Senator Caesar, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I move that the committee do now undertake Head 48, Ministry of Tourism and Transport Headquarters.
Please continue.
Thank you. Mr. Chair, the budget appropriation for the entire ministry totals $88,496,079, as found on page B194 of the Estimates of Revenue and Expenditure for year 2019-2020. The departments which come under the ministry include Ministry Headquarters, Head 48, Marine and Port Services, Head 30, Transport Control, or TCD, Head 34, and Public Transportation, DPT, Head 35. In addition, the Ministry of Tourism and Transport maintains oversight of the Bermuda Civil Aviation Authority, Bermuda Shipping and Maritime Authority, Bermuda Airport Authority, and Bermuda Tourism Authority. Mr. Chair, it is the Ministry Headquarters which is responsible for tourism and aviation matters. And those are found on pages B195 to B198 of the Estimates of Revenue and Expenditures for the year 2019-2020. Mr. Chair, the mission of this head is to develop effective transportation policy and provide transportation systems that meet the needs of Bermuda's residents and visitors, to provide oversight and financial support to the Bermuda Tourism Authority and the Bermuda Airport Authority, and guidance to authorities responsible for civil aviation and maritime affairs. Mr. Chair, the Ministry of Tourism and Transport Headquarters, or Head 48, includes 3 business units: Administration, Transportation Planning Team, and the Regulatory and Policy Hotel Administration Section. Mr. Chair, the total current expenditure for the Ministry of Tourism and Transport's headquarters is estimated to be $39,475,159 for the fiscal year 2019-2020. This represents an increase of $25,080,606, or 174% over the prior year's budget of $14,440,000. $479,553. This increase is due to the November 2018 ministerial reorganization that returned the responsibilities for tourism to the ministry, resulting in the addition of the Bermuda Tourism Authority and related grants. The reorganization also saw the departure from the Ministry of Responsibility for the Department of Energy, which included oversight of broadcasting telecommunications and the Bermuda Regulatory Authority, and its associated budget of $783,169. The headquarters budget includes funding for the 3 business units mentioned previously, as well as the current account operational expenditure grants and contributions as seen in the Ministry of Tourism and Transport headquarters subjective analysis of current account estimates, grants and contributions, budget line located on page B196 and Schedule 1, grants and contributions on C18 of the budget book, which is inclusive of the Bermuda Airport Authority grant in the amount of $13,300,000 and the Bermuda Tourism Authority grant in the amount of $22,500,000. For the fiscal year 2019-2020, the ministry's headquarters budget also includes grants and contributions for entities such as the World Triathlon Series in the amount of $2,070,470, which is year 3 of a 5-year commitment, and JetBlue in the amount of $60,000, which is year 3 of a 3-year cooperative marketing agreement.
Senator, if I could just interrupt for a moment and just acknowledge the presence in the Senate this morning of the Minister of Tourism and Transport, the Honorable Zane De Silva. Welcome, sir. Please continue, Senator.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I'll move on to Head 48's Cost Center 58000, which is Administration. The Administration section within the Ministry of Tourism and Transport headquarters will have a budget of $38,960,785,000. The majority of this allocation compromises the 2 authorities' grants, about which I will provide more information later in the brief. For now, I will move on to the Transportation Planning Team, and that's at Cost Center 58010. Mr. Chair, the Transportation Planning Team within the Ministry of Tourism and Transport headquarters is allocated a budget of $140,660 and can be found on page B195 of the budget book. The Transportation Planning Team oversees cruise ship operational, regulatory, and legislative matters. Together with the Bermuda Tourism Authority, the Transportation Planning section sets the cruise ship strategy, which has a strong focus on increasing cruise ship passenger spending and attracting a mix of cruise brands that can visit the Royal Naval Dockyard, as well as the City of Hamilton and the town of St. George. Mr. Chair, the Transportation Planning Team spearheads the logistical support for various government departments, on-island stakeholders, hoteliers, and cruise ship partners to ensure the efficient integration of transportation services to meet expectations in Bermuda. Planning initiatives for this year include, but are not limited to, meeting regularly with transport operators to plan for the 2019 season, stakeholder consultation and communication regarding the cruise ship schedule and high-impact areas, such as ground transportation and services required during one-day and weekend cruise ship calls. Implementing a revised plan for traffic coordination of taxis, minibuses, and public buses at Horseshoe Bay Beach, where over 5,000 visitors can be found on any given day during the cruise ship season, to be executed by the Department of Parks, with TCD traffic officers assisting when necessary. Identifying the correct number of minibuses to meet resident and visitor demand, particularly for those persons with special needs requiring heavy wheelchair accessible transport options. Working with Department of Parks to increase the presence of lifeguards earlier and later in the season, especially at Horseshoe Bay Beach. working with the Department of Works and Engineering to arrange much-needed shading at the Horseshoe Bay Beach General Transportation Area for visitors and transport operators, working with the Department of Marine and Port Services to identify and implement supplemental ferry service to accommodate an extended cruise ship season and an increase in cruise ship passenger arrivals, with the Department of Public Transportation to organize ground support staff to help with passenger queuing and pass validation in the Naval Royal Dockyard, ensuring the Bermuda Visitor Services Centers and Dockyard are open when a cruise ship arrives alongside, championing the need for public transportation services to implement a digital fare media system alongside a public transportation trip planning app with real-time information on the status of buses and ferries in time for the 2020 cruise ship season, and finally advocating for bow loading capabilities for public ferries at Hunter's Wharf in St. George's by 2020 so that persons who use wheelchairs can travel to and from Dockyard to St. George's by ferry. Mr. Chair, I would like to update you now on the cruise ship activity. In 2018, Bermuda received 171 cruise ship calls, bringing 484,339 passengers to our shores. In 2019, 194 cruise ship calls are expected, with an estimated 545,000 cruise ship passengers. This represents an increase of 23 calls and approximately 60,000 passengers compared with 2018. Mr. Chair, cruise passengers on island spending is also expected to increase significantly in 2019 to $123 million, an increase of $12,900,000 over the $110,100,000 spent by cruise ship passengers in 2018. The government of Bermuda is also expecting an increase in cruise ship tax revenue from $24,100,000 in 2018 to $32,300,000 in 2019. This increase is a portion of what will go to the Bermuda Tourism Authority, with the remainder destined for the Consolidated Fund, and it is attributed to a restructuring of the cruise ship and cruise passenger taxes, which have not been uplifted in over 13 years. Cruise ship and cruise passenger taxes in effect from April 1st, 2019. Number 1, cabin tax will be repealed. 2, passenger departure tax will remain the same for ships berthing in or at anchor and tendering to the town of St. George and the city of Hamilton at $20 per person per 24-hour period or any part thereof, to a maximum of $60. 3, there will be an increase of $5 to $25 per person for passenger departure tax for each 24-hour period or any part thereof, to a maximum of $75 per person per call for ships berthing in Dockyard or at anchor and tendering to Dockyard.
Senator Caesar, if I could just interrupt for a moment and acknowledge the presence of the Permanent Secretary for Tourism and Transport, A. Dean Rattery-Price, in the Senate. Welcome. Please continue, Senator Caesar.
Thank you. Continuing on with cruise ship and cruise passenger taxes in effect from April 1st. Number 4, we will introduce a $22 per person tax called the Large Ship Infrastructure Tax for passengers sailing on vessels with a gross tonnage exceeding 149,000 tons or exceeding 1,120 feet in length or exceeding 4,000 passengers, whichever is applicable. There are 2 ships identified in the 2019 cruise ship schedule that fit this criteria. They are Royal Caribbean's Anthem of the Seas and the Norwegian Cruise Line's Norwegian Escape. The large ship infrastructure tax revenue will be used to help fund infrastructure improvements. There will be a new cruise ship fee of $16 per person to fund destination marketing and online product and experience development by the Bermuda Tourism Authority. This fee will be paid directly to the BTA, and as a result, the government will be able to reduce its annual grant to the authority. Simply stated, Mr. Chair, the cabin tax of $14 per cabin per day is replaced with the flat fee of $16 per person for the new BTA cruise ship passenger fee. Government's passenger departure tax increases by $5 per person per 24 hours for ships berthing in dockyard. And for passengers traveling on larger ships, an additional tax of $22 per person is being levied to help fund cruise ship infrastructure projects. Mr. Chair, government taxes from cruise ship passengers and the BTA cruise passenger fee combined will generate an estimated $40,200,000 in revenue between April 1 and 31st of October 2019. This is an estimated increase of $16 million in taxes and fees over the 2018 cabin tax and passenger departure tax revenue. The cruise ship strategy to extend the cruise ship season and incentivize cruise ship calls to Bermuda in the off-peak season will remain. Therefore, neither government taxes nor the BTA cruise passenger fee will be charged between the 1st of November and the 31st of March. Mr. Chair, it will come as no surprise that the cruise lines really do enjoy calling into Bermuda and that Bermuda remains a profitable destination for 1, 2, and 3-day calls. The transportation planning and BTA teams have been tracking the economic value of the cruise ship business to Bermuda more closely in recent years. With an increased emphasis on onboard activities, it is documented that Bermuda vendors have suffered as a result. However, the cruise ship passengers do add vibrancy to all ports and contribute an average spend of $227 per person per visit on transportation, meals, retail shopping, and tours. The best retail months are reported to be May, June, July, and early August, when younger cruise passengers travel with their families. Mr. Chair, I would like to share with you what cruise business actually means to Bermuda. We have estimated that $178,700,000 will be circulating in the Bermuda economy by the end of 2019 cruise ship season. The passenger spending $110.1 million, cruise spending $5.5 million, government taxes are $31.8 million, BTA passenger fees $7.82 million, and the cruise line disbursements expenses $10 million paid to on-island vendors via the cruise line's port agent during each call. Mr. Chair, the season for contracted cruise ships starts on Sunday, April 14th, with regular calls running through Sunday, September. Let me slow down. Mr. Chair, the season contracted for cruise ships starts on Sunday, 14th of April, with regular calls running through Sunday, 17th of November. It includes the Grandeur of the Seas with 18 calls, the Anthem of the Seas with 24 calls, the Norwegian Escape with 27 calls, the Norwegian Gem, which replaces the Norwegian Dawn, with 22 calls, and the Celebrity Summit with 17 calls. In addition, Mr. Chair, Norwegian's Regent Seven Seas and Oceania brand ships will continue to make 12 contract calls to St. George between Friday, 5th of April and Monday, 18th November. The City of Hamilton will receive 15 calls between 5th of April and 24th December in 2019. Carnival Cruise Ship will make 20 occasional calls, which is an increase of 7 calls in 2019. The Disney Magic will return with 5 occasional calls between 27th of September and 25th October. 2 Holland America cruise lines will visit Bermuda this year, and they are the I practiced this last night, which didn't obviously work, the Zuiderdam and Rotterdam. Bermuda will host 5 inaugural cruise ship calls in 2019, and they are the MS NCL Pearl, April 20th to 21, the MS NCL Jade, April 25th to 26, the MS Celebrity Edge, April 30th to May 1st, MS Adventure of the Seas, May 19th, and MS Spirit of Discovery, December 31st to January 1st. Mr. Chair, the Transportation Planning Team has identified 11 dates when Bermuda will experience a significant number of cruise ship passengers in port at the same time. These dates have been highlighted with industry stakeholders as peak transport challenge days and early preparation is underway. The cruise ship schedule can be found from the Marine and Ports website at www.marineandports.bm, and it is updated regularly. Mr. Chair, the third business unit in the headquarters, Head 48, is Regulatory and Policy Hotel Administration, and that cost center is 58020. The Regulatory and Policy Hotel Administration unit has been allocated a budget of $373,714 and is found on page B195 of the Estimates of Revenues and Expenditures. The variance between the 2019 budget and the revised budget for 2018-19 is nil. As noted earlier, this section was transferred from the Ministry of Tourism and Transport from the former Ministry of Economic Development and Tourism in November last year. Mr. Chair, the unit is responsible for the inspection and licensing of properties listed on the hotel inventory. As of May 1st, 2018, there were 41 operated licensed properties, including 4 large resort hotels, 10 small hotels, 4 cottage colonies, 3 clubs, 7 large cottages, suites and apartments, 6 small cottages, suites and apartments, 2 inns, 4 bed and breakfasts, not to be confused with Airbnb, and 1 flotel, which is the boat known as the Venetian, which is sometimes used as a hotel. The unit jointly administers the new Vacation Rentals Act 2018 with the Consumer Affairs Department in conjunction with the Ministry of Home Affairs. Unlike the process of inspecting and licensing properties listed on hotel inventory, vacation rental proprietors are required to complete a self-check application form before being issued a vacation rental certificate or vacation rental or rent control certificate. Mr. Chair, the Vacation Rentals Act 2018 amended the definition of a hotel per Section 1 of the Hotels Licensing and Control Act 1969 to mean a place which provides sleeping accommodation for 10 or more guests, which increased from 6 or more guests. As such, a vacation rental is one that provides sleeping accommodation for 9 or fewer guests. These proprietors are required to register and secure a vacation rental certificate, as previously mentioned, issued either by the minister responsible for tourism or the minister responsible for rent control. Recent research unveiled that there are at least 662 properties posted on various platforms as vacation rental properties, including but not limited to Airbnb, Bermuda Rentals, and Vacation Rentals by Owner. These properties offer sleeping accommodations to 9 or fewer guests. And our research also unveiled that there are 44 properties posted on various platforms which can provide for 10 or more guests, which are not on our hotel inventory list. The Regulatory and Policy Unit is addressing the compliance issue, meeting with each property owner individually, and expects these properties to be listed as hotels by the end of the upcoming financial year. Mr. Chair, the unit is also responsible for the administration of the Lotteries Act 1944 on behalf of the Secretary to the Cabinet. So far, in the current financial year, 42 raffle permits and 24 business permits have been issued under this act. Mr. Chair, the Regulatory and Policy Unit also administers the Tourism Investment Act 2017, the successor to the Hotels Concession Act of 2000, which became operative on the 10th of November 2017. The Tourism Investment Act 2017 revoked 14 inactive or spent hotels concession orders, leaving 8 active hotel concession orders in place. Mr. Chair, the Tourism Investment Act provides relief depending on the level of investment of the property as follows. For a new hotel for a period not exceeding 10 years, a refurbished hotel for a period not exceeding 5 years, a new restaurant for a period not exceeding 3 years, an existing restaurant for a period of 1 year, and an attraction for a period of 1 year.